am star, a piece of it all. I am light. Dallas Craft and the band, everybody. Can we give it up? I do love that song so much because I really feel like it encapsulates our teachings, like right there, right? I'm not the brokenness inside. I'm not the story. I'm not the color of my eyes or the way people even see me. I am light. What would our lives be like if we actually lived like that? And that's what I want to talk about today, this idea of how we can live intentionally. And the booklet that Gabrielle read from is available to everyone. Nancy's holding one up. It's available if you want to watch. If you want one online, just email the office at unityinmarin.org and we'll mail one out to you. But we have them in the lobby. They're free. They're in the chair backs. Help yourself. Take them. Take more. Share them with other people. It's really a wonderful way to set an intention, and you can do it daily as it is in the book, or you can pick one of those days and do it for a week. What if you were actually patient for a week? Chris, I think that would be your assignment. I say that with great love. So in Unity, we really are anchored in this understanding that the consciousness that we bring to something transforms our own experience of it, right? How it is that we get to live into something. And so when I'm talking about living intentionally, I'm not talking about this idea of, oh, I had such good intentions. I wanted to go and get her something nice. That's not what I'm talking about, right? I'm talking about spiritual intentions. I am talking about things that aren't just about actions. It's not about the doingness. It's about a state of consciousness. So perhaps it's holding faith, or perhaps it's being wise, or maybe it's becoming aware. How many people in here have blinders on? It's the same answer to, do you look in the mirror in the morning, right? We all have blinders of some shape or form that we're carrying. And you can set a spiritual intention around anything that feels authentically like something you are being called into becoming. And the idea behind spiritual intentions is that they call forth the best in you. In Unity, we will often say in our prayers, the highest and best. And that's what spiritual intentions are aligning with, is that thing. Because what it's doing is spiritual intentions allow us to activate the divine qualities that are available to all of us. I know that there is some part of you that believes that you are a divine exception in some way, shape, or form. But it's a lie. I mean, really hear that. It's not true. And yet we all have those areas where we think, oh no, I didn't get any of that. That's not me. And the other thing that spiritual intentions allow us to do is they allow us to sort of flip the picture. So oftentimes we're so focused on the physical realm, we're so focused on what we can touch and see and taste and feel, that we think that we are actually creating in the physical realm. But we're not, right? Spiritual intentionality allows us to consciously create from that field of consciousness. And what we know in Unity is that the invisible is always behind the visible. behind everything that is manifested in time and space, there is that invisible principle that is there. Now, we may or may not be able to see it, and it may or may not be being used in a way that is regenerative, because we do have free will. And so we're allowed to take these principles and we are allowed to use them in ways that don't always serve us. Has anybody in here ever done that to themselves? So shifts in consciousness create shifts in the manifest realm. Not the reverse, well, sort of, sometimes the reverse, but really, when we're focusing on true transformation, that involves our consciousness. Can you feel the truth of that? We can change our behavior, but that doesn't mean that we've actually transformed our consciousness. If we want to be more loving, but we're not actually shifting our consciousness to be one of love and harmony, we very quickly become a people pleaser. The behavior is to be loving, but it's not actually anchored in the spiritual truth of who we are. Can you feel the difference? So what I'm always interested in is what's underneath it all. So the biggest question is, who do you want to be? Really? Who do you want to be? And then the obstacles to who we want to be are all the ways that the outside conditions and impacts of the world land on us. And I want to be really clear. I am not minimizing in any way, shape, or form the pain that happens when those external conditions land on us. I was listening to an interview with Kamala Harris, and she was talking about how when you're trying to break through barriers, you don't go from one side of the barrier to the other. You actually have to break through it. And in the breaking of it, you can get cut. And anybody in here who has broken a barrier knows that sometimes it actually can hurt a little bit. But that's part of how we begin to grow and understand the truth of who we are or not. So the questions that I just want you to sit with, because, I like the idea of living in the question, not the answer. We're not trying to problem solve. Our minds want to solve the problem. What if we just sit in the question? Does the outside world determine who I am? Does it shape how I show up in the world? Does it define what my experience is going to be? And does it limit my understanding of what is possible in my life? Because that's what unity is all about. Just opening into the Christ nature that we truly are, and that Christ potential, that Christ consciousness is limitless. So that means, made in the image and likeness, that we are limitless. But how many of us actually live that way? So this section in here is me paraphrasing and taking from Joe Dispenza, all right? Breaking the habit of being yourself. And this idea that he brings forward is be it now. Don't wait. Don't push it off. Don't say tomorrow. How many people in here say tomorrow? Tomorrow I'll go for that walk. Tomorrow I'll... So his whole thing is about being it now. So if now everyone knows I've been challenged with the foot thing and it's been a long time actually that I've had like hips and knees. I had frozen shoulder. I mean, I've had all kinds of things happening with my physical body. So if I'm acting like I'm not healthy, I can tell you it wasn't very supportive of my well-being and my mental wellness, right? I had to begin to to get a muscle going that was saying, if I am healthy right now, what choice do I make? How do I move through the world? What do I feel? What do I eat? What do I do if I am healthy? Now, can you feel the conundrum? Can you feel how there can be some incongruence between the pain that my body is experiencing and me saying, I am healthy? We have to release what we think it is that health is, or companionship is, or prosperity is, whatever it is that you're with. We have to release what we think it is. And we just have to keep saying to ourselves, what is it right now? What does health look like now? I wish I could go back in time to that girl who biked 20 miles a day. That ain't gonna happen anytime soon. Now, I'm not holding that it's not gonna happen in the future. I'm not. I love biking. I miss it. But what does health mean for me right now? And it's a very different thing. And that can be hard to reconcile with what was and what is and what we think is coming. We always come back to present moment awareness. What does health look like for me right now? And so the first thing we can do is just take baby steps. Baby steps. So maybe you're just taking 3 more steps today than you took yesterday. Maybe it's just 1 more step today than you took yesterday. Maybe you use the stairs instead of the elevator. Maybe for one thing that you're going to eat today, you're going to make it something healthy. Not that you have to revise your entire diet immediately overnight. One thing. One thing. Maybe you meditate 1 minute longer. Maybe you meditate 1 minute. Maybe you go to bed 10 minutes earlier. Maybe you wake up 10 minutes earlier. Maybe you wake up 10 minutes later. Maybe you write a letter to a person you've been avoiding. You do not have to mail it. But do you spend time with that? Can you set aside 10 minutes to look over one thing relating to your finances? That's a big one for people. We shut down, we don't want to look at it, we put it off. How many people in here scramble to do their taxes right before the tax deadline? Right? Baby steps. And the real question that I ask all the time is, where is your attention? Where is your attention? Is it on what you have actually accomplished? Or is it on how much further there is to go? And when it's on how much further there is to go, how does that make you feel? It's not rhetorical. How does it make you feel when you focus on how much further there is to go? Bad. Maybe anxious. I heard something over here. Stuck. Discouraged. Right? Are any of those things emotions that sort of operate on a high vibrational frequency? They're not. They really aren't. So Joe Dispenza talks about what he calls elevated emotions. And they're joy and relief and freedom and love and peace, right? All of these things are elevated emotions. And they have a higher frequency than survival emotions, like fear, anger, jealousy, guilt, anxiety, worry, stuckness, right? So his whole philosophy is if you change the frequency, it changes the energy of your being, which then supports a new consciousness and new thoughts and new intentions. Can you feel how that for me anyway, it felt like, oh, so I don't have to ignore my emotional life. My emotional life is what's helping to guide me to understand where I'm being invited to up-level my consciousness. Is everyone with me? We don't deny anything that we feel. Everybody say it with me. We don't deny anything that we feel, right? We don't deny it. But the question is, are you luxuriating in it? Are you marinating in it? That's the real question. So, along with the baby steps, you're being invited to create a no judgment zone. Wouldn't that be nice? If you didn't judge yourself? Whew. We just hold ourselves to such ridiculous standards sometimes. It's really incredible. So there is no baby step too small. Everybody say that with me. There is no baby step too small. Because what our natural inclination is to do is to dismiss the little thing. Oh, well, it was just an apple. And then I had, a really large thing of pasta for dinner. But you changed something where you lived into your intention of being health. You actually ate an apple, which you hadn't eaten the day before. Now, if you dismiss the apple and you negate the apple and you make the apple inconsequential because, it's a little apple, you are undermining your capacity to actually be in the process of transformation. Can you feel that? You want to focus on what you have accomplished, not what you should have accomplished. You know what they say, don't should on yourself. Don't should on yourself, right? All it does is energetically bring your energy down. So what do we need to bring to ourselves? Patience, gentleness, and compassion. How many people in here treat themselves with patience, gentleness, and compassion? You may treat other people. Don's got his hand up. I love Don because he's so on it. I mean this sincerely. You're an inspiration, Don, because I know how hard you work at these things. I know how tenacious you are in applying these principles. When we can bring patience and gentleness and compassion to ourselves, guess what it also means? We are able to then bring patience and gentleness and compassion to each other. We cannot give what we do not have. So if we are not holding ourselves in gentleness and compassion and patience, then there is no way that we can show up like that for anyone else. So what we're looking for is to shift those, even away is kind of wrong. I wrote that and I was going back and forth all morning. It's to shift those survival emotions. And don't get me wrong, survival emotions are vital. I grew up in New York City. You needed to know and listen to your fear, right? You did. It wasn't something you discounted. There's a whole book out there called The Gift of Fear, right? How fear is actually a mechanism that when we listen to it, the real fear, that it actually creates a space for us to be able to show up in the present moment with whatever's arising, with capacity that we didn't even know we had. I got attacked on the street in the middle of a blizzard when I was like 19 years old. I was walking home and the subways were shut down, and I lived in Queens and no cabs were going to take me to Queens because I didn't want to go over the bridge. So I was walking to get closer to the 59th Street Bridge, and it's a blizzard, right? I am bundled up from head to toe. And as I'm walking, this gentleman comes past me and then just grabs my arm and tries to pull me into the deserted subway station. And I just allowed myself to respond, right? I remember, like, I started to fight at first, but he was stronger than I was. And I remembered my friend Sal, who was a wrestler, who told me once when we were wrestling, he said, "You make it too easy. You give me too much of your energy." He said, "If you go limp, I can't move you." And so that's what I did. Can you understand how that fights every instinct that you probably have in your body? But I went completely limp, and I went down, and he went down, and then I started kicking. And he got up, and he started to run, and I was screaming at him, chasing him down the street, screaming at the top of my lungs. I could almost like see my anger like hitting him in the back as he was running away. Now, my fear somehow knew that he didn't have a weapon. Like, my fear knew how to respond to that situation in a way that actually kept me safe. So our survival emotions are not the enemy, but again, we do not want to luxuriate in them. We don't want them to become the thing that we first go to, right? We want them to be the thing that when it is necessary, they are there for us. So we want to focus on our spiritual nature. We want to nurture the more elevated emotions, regardless of the experience. Everybody breathe with me, because we love to let the experience define whether or not we are feeling good about life or not. And this is an invitation to loosen the ties that bind you from circumstances dictating who you are. Circumstances aren't going to change. This isn't like magical thinking. The circumstances are, racial injustice exists. There are horrible things happening in our planet right now. How am I going to navigate that from a place of empowerment? Joe Dispenza says, nobody changes until they change their energy. If you change your energy, you change your life. Does that sound like one of our little aphorisms? Change your thinking, change your life, change your beliefs, change your life. To change is to be greater than your environment, to be greater than the conditions in your world. So how do we do that? We really just need to focus on these three things: celebration, appreciation, and gratitude. Because we all have the craziest ideas in our head about what it is that we're supposed to achieve, how quickly we're supposed to achieve it, what it's supposed to look like when we get there, how it's going to feel when we get there, and we're making it up. We are making it up. When I was in grad school, you're getting all my little stories here. When I was in graduate school in my MFA program, MFA programs for actors are tough, right? You get up there, you do a scene, and then you get critiqued. And people tell you everything you did wrong. And they start to hone in after a time on what your quote-unquote acting problem is. Can you guess what mine was? Doing too much. That was my acting problem, doing too much. My first year, I was so miserable. I felt like I made no progress. I felt like all I could hear was the critiques. I couldn't hear where people were telling me what I had done well. The critiques just overwhelmed everything. I felt I was one of the few people who hadn't gone through acting as my undergraduate training. I had been a director, so and these people were actors, like they hadn't been doing anything but acting their whole life. They're like, when I was 8, I was in a play. And I'm like, oh my God, right? And then I had a moment, and I had a thought, and I realized that my scale, I had no scale. I had this like amorphous thing that I thought I was supposed to achieve that would make me the goddess of the acting world. And I had no way to actually measure any of the growth that I was experiencing. So every semester, I started making little graphs in my journal, and I broke it down to textual analysis, voice, body movement, authenticity in the moment. I had all these little categories. And at the beginning of the semester, I would place myself where I thought I was. And let me be really clear, it was always very low on the scale. Right? And then throughout the semester, every month, I made myself check back in again. And all of a sudden, I start to realize that I was improving, because I could see it. If I had to put it on the graph, I knew I wasn't actually doing a straight line. So all of a sudden, I start to see a visual aid that allowed me to understand, in my bones, that I was growing and evolving and deepening and my understanding. And all of a sudden, I could hear people tell me what I was doing well. I shifted the energy, and that allowed me to open up to a different understanding of who I was and what was possible. Can you feel that? All too often, the scale that we have set for ourselves is impossible to reach, because it doesn't really exist. It's a figment of our imagination. We have some ideal that we think we're supposed to become, and we completely lose track of the fact that we are right here, right now, being it. So I started doing little celebrations. I was very big into the Tao of Pooh and Winnie the Pooh. Can you guess who I am? Tigger. And so I had all these stickers from when you're 5, and I would decorate every time I had an improvement. I'd give myself a little sticker. It felt so good. There's a reason why we give gold stars in kindergarten. There is a reason for it. It's because that type of feedback supports our understanding of how it is and gives us something to celebrate, gives us something to be grateful for, gives us something to appreciate. And when we enter into that field, right, I wasn't my gratitude wasn't that I was some amazing actor anymore. My vision board was me on the cover of Time Out New York, which is the theater, one of the theater things, my headshot cut out, and it said something Tony, winning actress. I let go of all of that. What was more important to me was the sense I had of accomplishment, of success, of growth. And I've talked about this before. Excellence, not perfection. Excellence, but not perfection. So when you look at sort of how Joe Dispenza kind of breaks it out, and I don't know if he would agree with this model, so complete disclaimer, right? But he talks about how you cannot have a shift in consciousness without a shift in energy, meaning that our emotional life shifts. I don't know. I don't think it's that cut and dry. I'm not a big linear person. I think it's more of they all feed each other. How many people in here have felt stuck, gone into the closet, and just started taking stuff out of the closet and throwing it away, which would be to shift a behavior? And then all of a sudden, we have a shift in our energy, and all of a sudden, we have a shift in consciousness, and then it works the other way too, right? So I offer this model just so that you can understand the process of how we can live intentionally. We need all three of these. We need to be focusing on our consciousness, the big, big, big umbrella. We need to be focusing on how that's actually living in our beingness, which includes our body, but it's bigger than our body. Yes? Everyone with me on that? And then we have how behaviors are being invited to shift. Patience, gentleness, compassion, celebration, appreciation, and gratitude. What if that was your intention? That you were going to live from those 6 divine qualities? I mean, that's kind of life right there, right? I mean, I can't really think of anything that could happen to me that one of those things wouldn't be possible. And the reason why appreciation and gratitude are both there for those who are like, aren't those the same thing? Sometimes things are happening in your life and you really can't be grateful for them, but you can appreciate them, right? You can appreciate something even if you can't quite find your way to actual gratitude. And then we have all these practices that support these 6 things, right? We have meditation and contemplation and affirmations and affirmative prayer and life visioning and community. Look around at each other, right? And then that creative impulse, when we own it, when we stand in it, however it expresses through us. For some of us, it's how we dress. For some of it's a song or a poem. For some of us, it's the way we arrange our living room. For some of us, it's our garden. How does that creative impulse live as you? And can you be intentional about supporting all of these things? Again, baby steps. You do not have to do everything all at once. You just need to do one thing. Appreciate it, celebrate it, do another one. Appreciate it, celebrate it, do another one. Appreciate it, celebrate it. Maybe I'll do 2. Appreciate them, celebrate them. Or can you feel how we get caught in what I like to call a regenerative cycle, where the behaviors and the energy and the emotional life that we are being present with and inhabiting, and the consciousness of who we are, all of them are working together to support more joy, more life, more love, more beauty, more harmony, more inner connectivity, more authenticity, and the capacity actually to be more inclusive. Because that compassion and that openness, right? Can you feel how this is actually what the world needs? And if the world needs it, then guess what? We need it. We're not separate, right? We need it too. So that's a lot. Everyone take a breath with me as we're going to take this into a little bit of stillness. And I just want to invite the question, right? Whatever question is alive for you. Maybe the question is, how do I allow my circumstances to dictate the choices that I make? Maybe the question is, how do I deny myself possibility and potential? Where have you cut yourself off and said, oh no, this is as good as it gets and it's never going to be any better than this? So I'm going to invite you to take a breath. And the invitation is to allow that place in consciousness, to allow those, what Joe Dispenza calls the elevated emotions, to just make space for them. You're not creating them. You're just opening into the possibility that freedom is actually already yours. That love and connection is right here and right now. That health and vitality that never goes away. It is only transformed. And so we rest in that place and just allow ourselves to be here, right now. Perhaps with the circumstances that seem so challenging, but that's not all we are. Welcoming and making space for the truth of our being. So let us rest here together for a few minutes in the silence. And as we breathe into this gentle, compassionate, patient space, I want you to just pat yourself on the back, metaphysically or physically, and just call into your mind something that you are so appreciative about, something you are so grateful for, something that you are going to celebrate in some way, shape, or form. And just breathe into what that feels like. Welcoming a shift in energy. Welcoming this process of transformation. Knowing that this continues to move through all of us with ease and grace in the days to come. And that everything we need, we already are. For this truth, I am so grateful. I can lay it down. I don't have to become anything. I already am it. And in that allowing, a way is made out of no way. And gratitude for this and so much more. This beautiful process of evolution and expansion and transformation. I do give thanks. And so it is. Amen. Ashe.